joined by Prue Gordon, Executive Director of the Australian Centre for International Trade and Investment, for more analysis on the global trade impacts of these new US tariffs. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Morning, Dan.
Initially, what's your reaction to what we've seen over now the last 26 hours?
I'm not surprised at all. President Trump's trade policies are a disaster for the global economy, and I think this was foreseen when he first announced that he would be introducing these reciprocal tariffs.
And at this stage, what's your assessment of the type of impact this will have on Australia?
So it's really bad for the entire global market. Relatively speaking, Australia is probably a little bit better placed than most other countries because we've had such an open market. It's meant our businesses have had to be internationally competitive and flexible and adaptable. And so this huge shock to the global system will just require them to ratchet that up a couple more notches to enable them to navigate all of these changes and all of these tariffs.
And in the lead up to this, we heard that there was a lot of focus on how diversified the Australian market is. What's your assessment of our level of diversification and what that means for impacts going forward?
So in terms of our exports, we're actually quite concentrated in mineral and energy resources. Agriculture is a big export. And then we have some big services exports. But in terms of the impact, it's not only the impact of Australian exports to the US, it's equally the impact on Australian exports to third markets, and then the impact of additional product coming into Australia, because so many other countries now won't be able to get product into the US. So like Australia, they'll be looking for alternative markets. So there are multiple impacts for both our businesses, but also for Australian consumers and the kinds of products that are going to be flowing into Australia.
When you talk about that third markets, if I can just pull on that thread for a moment, is the risk there that other countries that are also facing these tariffs either won't want products from Australia or might want more?
No, I'm thinking that if an Australian business is exporting to, say, for example, Thailand, if European companies who make the same product aren't able to get that into America, they'll then be looking for other markets. So they potentially could look at Thailand. So Australian exporters in those markets will have far more competition from other companies who no longer can access the US market.
And yesterday in the comments that the President Donald Trump made, there was a particular focus on Australian beef and also the pharmaceutical benefits scheme, akin to a shot across the paddock, if you will. What was your assessment of why the President honed in on those areas but didn't announce specific tariffs on them?
I didn't think he actually mentioned the pharmaceutical benefit scheme. He absolutely targeted beef. But I think beef, our BSE blockage has been in place for a long time and has been a sore point for the US for a long time, and is one of the key issues that has been raised in the US report that looks at the different trade barriers maintained by other countries. I don't know that I haven't seen any specific reference to the PBS in terms of these specific tariffs.
I think you're right. I think I was my mistake referring to comments that he'd made prior to that in the frame of this conversation. It was specifically on beef.
Yes. So yes, the Americans have had issues with the PBS for a while, but really, my sense is in terms of his wish to actually try and get countries to change their policies, we're getting really conflicting messages, because if President Trump is actually wanting to rebuild US manufacturing behind protectionist walls and generate income, then if a country changes its policies, if he's actually trying to get countries to change those barriers that he's identified, then that would be contradictory to this bigger purpose of trying to rebuild US manufacturing. So my sense is, while he might talk about problems in other countries, whether that's beef or PBS, the messages that we're getting is that they're not really in a negotiating mood. He's actually said the tariffs will be permanent, which would fit more with these other objectives. So he might be talking about issues with Australia and other countries, But my sense is there's not necessarily a willingness there to negotiate on those.
And just finally, in light of that we've heard, particularly from politicians, talking about the opportunity to negotiate, and of course that comes in the frame of an election campaign. What do you think the message from the tariffs yesterday is to Australian business, and what do you expect they need to be doing and thinking about now?
I think they need to be doing what they always do, and that is managing risk and identifying new opportunities, because these shifts, these new tariffs that will cause shifts in supply chains, will be both detrimental to some businesses and create opportunities for others. So they need to keep doing what they've been doing so well, really, in terms of contributing to the Australian economy through trade and investment. It's going to be good and bad, but it's really the uncertainty that's created by this that just makes it so hard for business to manage that risk.